to break a couple of questions, but let me just come to you, June. What does this week mean, and what does it specifically mean for you?
I'm invested in more people understanding that foster care is possible, that foster care is an opportunity to add to your family, not to remove. I feel like many people focus on, oh my God, you're doing such a great thing, like I'm doing her a favor, right? But no, as a family, we have found that the experience has been very edifying for us, and I'm very invested in people understanding that it's possible to do it. Yeah, and investing in that kind of opportunity is actually sometimes beneficial for you as a family.
Do you sometimes get people asking you why you'd want to do this, and yet it's an African thing?
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, why do you need documentation? Why can't you just, you know, of course everything is a process, but I think you know what I mean. It's community, you know, kuna shangazi, uncles and aunties, you know. So do you sometimes get people asking you, really? You know, June?
Why would you do that? Yeah, and what I say is there's what's ideal. What's ideal is everybody grows up, I guess, in a family with a father and a mother and the children. But that's not always possible, right?
Or you take in your relatives.
Yes, and you take in your relatives and all that. That's not always possible, which in fact is the reason why I say if you've been in a situation where so you've either brought up your relatives or something like that, that's privilege that you've been accorded, right? And it gives me great pleasure to give other people who've not had that opportunity an opportunity to be a part of a family setting. You know, having grown up in a stable mom, dad, children family, I know how important that kind of nuclear setting is, and giving that to somebody else who has not had that opportunity. There are many children out there who have not had that opportunity, and even the best institution is nothing compared to a family. Even the best, fully functioning, running like a well-oiled machine institution is still an institution. It still lacks that personalized, one-on-one, individualized attention. And like he was saying, it's even very easy for issues to get missed just because, you know, you feel like the crowd is too big, and children, especially children who are not very vocal, who will not, you know, raise up their hands and be noticed, will easily get lost in the system. So
a misunderstanding of their character.
Yes,
also.
Absolutely. Or even just an enhancement of their gifts and talents. That gets missed. So for example, since we took her in, she's now learning to play guitar. She's doing all this. Yesterday she baked us a brownie cake. She's doing all this together with, so like I said, I have two. So both of them have had that opportunity to thrive in that way. And I'm very invested in other people understanding. I know it's a very delicate topic. I know sometimes families, I've heard of situations where you take in the child, but the family is not fully on board. But yeah, so if that opportunity, if it's possible for you to do it, it would be, I'd encourage many people to do it, as many people as possible. And actually what is the fact that it's not permanent can actually work in your favor, because it then means that you can try it for a period and see what you think. Don't reject it from afar. Just try. If you want, like she said, it's possible to have a younger child. If that's your preference, I've realized that many people prefer younger children. If you want an older child, just try and then see. You may be surprised.
All right.
Yeah.
And one of the requirements also is that if you have biological children, they need to be part of the process, you know, while you're doing the adoption, you know, the foster care perspective. And what happens when these biological children may have issues with their parents, you know, or they don't understand why their parents? Is it always the easiest conversation that you have seen parents having with their children, that they want to adopt a child?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I can say it is not always a walk in the park. And it is true, as you put it, that every member of this particular family has to be involved in this process. Simply because once the child is in this family, all the other people will be a part of this child's life. At times, the children can reject the idea from the word go, and we advise the parents to first hold it until we work with the children and they come to be on the same page. If maybe,
how do you work with the children?
Through just conversations, understand why they wouldn't want maybe another child in their family through a counseling setup, and maybe just share the advantages of having this child, and then give them the liberty to now make an informed decision at that point. There are some instances you find that the children will accept at the beginning, and then along the way challenges come up and they are now enemies in the house. And this is when I said, like at the Tree of Life, we have a counselor on call. We respond to such distress calls immediately. We sit with the foster child, the foster parents, and also the other now children within that family, just to understand where the issues are coming from. Because you'll find that maybe a child comes in, they are bought more clothes than the biological child simply because they didn't have enough.
And then from the
so it brings up problems. Such a thing can be resolved. But if counseling doesn't work, and we have to try it for several sessions, if it really doesn't work, now we are left now to, the only option is to withdraw the child from that family, because we want the child to be as safe as possible within this family, around every member of the family. We haven't had experiences of withdrawing the child, because counseling works. It works very well with all these children, and eventually they are able to cope with each other.
I see.
Yes.
All right. Now, Hudson, let's take a look at the perspective now of the children's home, coupled now with the new changes, which is now community-based, family-based setup. One of the issues that has been, wrangling this particular space is some things are not in check, like I was mentioning to you before the break, some people have been donating particular items to aid children in different ways, but you find that at times the children do not even get these particular items. You don't get, proper care, like you mentioned earlier. So are there particular checks, stringent ones for that matter, to just make sure, for the least, that these homes are actually working, as the transition continuously continues into this community, family-based, perspective?
Yeah, thank you again for that question. Care reform, we say, is a multifaceted approach in that it is multidisciplinary. We are involving all agencies. It's not only government. We also have the state and non-state run agencies that are supporting implementation of care reforms. And a lot has been done, because we are saying we need now to influence the donors who are supporting some of the institutions. And we are saying institutions are good because we have many of us who have been brought up within the institution and they are doing well. However, there are those who are rogue and those who are not doing the right thing. So we need to come in forcefully to ensure that the rights of those children are being upheld. If you look at the Children Act, section 67, the main reason for any charitable children institution to exist is, first of all, to be able to provide family and community-based care. So we are alive to that. Right. And we are saying we are working together with all the stakeholders to ensure that we are repurposing, we are refocusing, we are directing the resources that are being channeled to support children while in residential form of care. We are saying resources now should follow children back to families, so that then it is now able to assist that particular one child and also trickle down to the other children within the household. So yes, indeed, we have guidelines, we have regulations put in place. In particular, we are looking at the CCI regulations that came about in the year 2005, but it has been since reviewed, and we are waiting for gazettement of the same to regulate, guide how now we continue having the few CCIs in place. And remember, as we look at the National Care Reform Strategy that is guiding implementation of CCIs in Kenya, it is giving a 10-year period so that by 2032, after the launch, because the launch was done on 8th of June 2022, many of the CCI should be able now to transition children and themselves to family and community-based care option.
Right. Now that you've said, just to be clear, is the point here not to have these children home organizations at all, or just basically make sure that they're there and they're functioning and they're less?
They should be there, functioning, but now with what we are guiding, that they should be able to support children when those children are within families.
All right, that's clear.
Yes.
All right, earlier on, June, you mentioned something quite key about a caregiver being in the utmost top shape, you know, mentally, you know, and physically, for that matter. One of the key things that I just want to take you back to is to, like, maybe it reaches a point and she has to go back, and you have to, you know, continue maybe and get another child. That attachment is quite critical for this matter. So what happens if this particular child does not want to go back to their relatives? That's also another dynamic. They found a home, they're comfortable, they're happy. I know Anne here can elaborate that further also, but I'm asking you, what here, in your training, have you also been advised to look at that? You know, because it's a very possible, you know, situation.
Yeah. In fact, I've had parents from, during the training, I remember one of the parents walked up to me and said, I wouldn't want to be you, because several people who are in similar situations have relatives of the child that I know, have relatives who are not known. The child has relatives who are not known. So the likelihood is a lot slimmer. My case is different. I know some of the relatives we've met, and there are people who are actually working towards living with her. So I'm aware of that.
And they've made that a clear?
Oh yes, oh yes. And so I'm aware, but this is a 14-year-old. They eventually make a decision about where they're going to stay. So like I said, it's very difficult to really think 5-10 years from now. I mean, after they turn 18, either way, they have to make a decision about where they want to stay when they have an ID. But how I process it is, I'm also religious, so I'm going to give my best, do it as though I'm doing it for God, to God, right? And focus on the now. It's very difficult to focus on the future in that way, which I know is what complicates it a little bit for many people. But if you're able to, like they said, you give it a year, you do it for a year, you try and put her best interest, have her best interests as your priority. So she's growing well, she's been doing well, and what I've seen is likely to happen is that she'll be more attached to us, because also attachment takes time. So she'll be more attached to us. So I'm not very worried, to be honest. But yes, that's a possibility. And I know there's family that has expressed interest. But like she said, that gave me a lot of comfort to know that even that process of, if she decides to go back to the family, that process is very guided. Her mental wellness will be, because that's my concern, her mental health will be considered, her opinion will be considered. It will not be a haphazard process, which, you know, gives me comfort.
All right. And then I'll ask you, Annie, like I mentioned, what if this child really does not want to go back, you know, to their families? And in this case, like she mentioned, they are aware and they tell you, Anne, you know, I'm happy with these guys. No, you know, they're free with you. They tell you, and mimi staki kurudi yuko, you know. And now that you said also this thing is not permanent, when this, is it 3 years?
Yeah,
3 years. Now, when 3 years is over, does this child automatically transition, or do you have a renewal of sorts with the family and the child?
Well, thank you for that question. It's very paramount in this discussion. Going back to matching and bonding with the child in the foster family, we prepare the child that you're going to this family. Yes, you have this your family, but for now they are not able to take care of you. But there is this family which is willing and able to take care of you. So we explain it to the child. We take them through, of course, based on age, because again we have the very young ones. And even make them aware that during the foster care stay, they'll be having free access to their biological families. And we also encourage them, and also the biological family and the foster care family, to have that bond from time to time, especially during school holidays. Holidays, they visit the biological family just to interact with that environment in preparation for integration after maybe the 3 years or even less. We also work so much with the foster families, because we encourage them, as June has put it, to put the interest of the child ahead of their interests. Yeah. If we are saying that, yes, as a family, we have developed an attachment with this child and we are not ready to let go, are we serving our interest as a family or the interest of the child? So we look at all this, but as June has again put it, we don't just do like one morning we wake up and withdraw the child. It is a process, and this process starts from the beginning of the foster care process, preparing them that this time will eventually come. In case maybe it is not possible, if it is a matter of attachments, we can have like a co-parenting arrangement from there between the foster family and the biological family. The child just continues living with this family, having access to the biological family, but again now the foster family has to go to the court for an extension, which is now for a longer period of time, and it is upon the court to decide for how long it is going to extend that.
And what is the determinant in that factor, like upon their decision on granting them further time, more time, or not?
It can vary from family to family, because we can have a child maybe who is in like grade 6 or has 1 year to be a candidate, and once we withdraw them from the family and maybe they have to transfer schools, all that changes might bring more problems to the child and more challenges. So there are several things that the children officer is supposed to look at, compile a report and present it at the court, so that the foster family is granted now the extension as the court may deem it fit.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right. Hudson, I'd like to get your final comments. Unfortunately, we've come to the end, of the conversation, but just you can add on what she said, because it's so important. I'm imagining this child has some form of attachment, and they may have to leave, this family, and it's determined by, a court of law for that matter. So how do you also make the transition easy, as an officer?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just to revisit what you've asked her, within the Children Act, there is a provision to transition from foster care option to any other care option, be it adoption, guardianship, and any other care option that is provided for within the Act. Yeah, so basically, that case is merit-based, and we look at the bond that exists between the child and the foster parents and even the family of origin. If it is not that conducive for the child to go back, would rather have the child within the foster parent, only that they now need to seek extension of the same through the courts.
I got you.
Yes.
All right.
Maybe 1 minute just to
very, very briefly, because we still need to get you.
We are looking at the National Foster Care Week, and we are saying it is a national celebration that will be held in Murang'a County tomorrow from 8:30 to around 3 p.m. and it will be graced by the CS within the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, and it is providing an opportunity for all of us to brainstorm as a country, look at what we've been able to do alongside celebrating our great heroes and heroines here.
Okay.
Like our first apparent here, Madam
All
June.
right.
Thank you.
2 seconds, June. My director is telling me we have no time.
Okay.
Very briefly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just say hi to them. I know they're watching me, the two girls. Hi.
Okay. All right.
All
Okay,
right.
blessed. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Appreciate you all for coming in today and giving us an elaborate understanding of what foster care especially looks like in Kenya. Our guests today have been June Tuna, she's a foster mom. We've also been speaking to Hudson Imbai, Assistant Director, Children's Services, Alternative Family Care, and Anne Njoki Chege, Alternative Care Expert, the Tree of Life, FADV. Thank you so much for watching Morning Vibe. My name is Remmy Majala. We'll see you again next week. Thank you for joining us. Right, it's a wrap.
The joys of growing your own food in your backyard. This week on Kilimo na Biashara, we focus on kitchen gardening.